Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you. Thank you, as always, for being part of my journey. Today, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and this is in regard to basically ethical conduct by metaphysical workers, particularly those people that claim to be psychics. Now, I'm motivated to do this because of developments here in Australia, so I'll get into that shortly. Before I do, though, I just want to explain if you're a newbie to the channel, thank you very much for joining me today. And I hope that you'll continue to be part of the channel. I am actually trying to build a community of sharing information between us. And unfortunately, I feel it's unfortunate, all people hear is my voice. I would actually like to get to that stage where I can invite other people to speak about their expertise and knowledge of the subject matter that I bring to the fore, if you like, the front, when I make these videos, and certainly when I do the playlists. But anyway, today without further ado, I'm going to let you know what has happened here in Australia that has prompted me to create this video today with the theme of basically psychic fraud. So here in Australia, what we've got going on is it made the headlines that a woman had been arrested and she's got some fairly serious charges put on her. But it turns out she was part of a group of scammers, absolute criminals actually. And part of it that they were doing, they were actually money laundering for criminal gangs and using tarot and psychic services as part of this laundering thing. But anyway, there has also been scamming. The victims of these scams with this money laundering are actually genuine people that were very vulnerable, and some of them have lost money to the tune of 300,000 Australian dollars. We're talking about a lot of money. So anyway, I'm going to read this little bit out. This is an article. Where was my reference for this? I'll put the reference up before I actually publish it. Okay, what was written, it was that the prosecutor would allege that the group were claiming to be psychics, and during the process with the victims, they were encouraging them to supply them with property and money. They said, this is the police, we will be alleging that these offenders have taken property from their victims and not returned it in breach of what the victim would have expected, he said. With the matters now before the courts, Inspector Brooks could not specify the exact nature of the psychic services provided, but did confirm several items relating to the profession were seized from the residence searched at Punchbowl, which is a suburb, I think in Melbourne actually, including tarot cards and crystal balls. Now, I could make a comment about that. I suppose I do see the point. They're so easily purchased, they don't break the bank to get, so anybody can go and get them. But anyway, the Scam Watch statistics show that 105 psychic and or clairvoyant scams have been reported in Australia this year alone. We're talking about 2024, with 25 of those in New South Wales. On the danger of these scams, Inspector Brooks strongly urges people to not provide anyone claiming to offer psychic services any money. Police believe there may be further individuals involved in the syndicate and urge anyone with information or anyone who believes they may have fallen victim to the scam to contact Crime Stoppers. So that's a pretty serious article, and I can understand the police saying don't provide any money, but what I want to address is that there are actually legitimate, really good psychics out there. But the thing is that the public needs to be educated and informed on how to identify the fraud from the legitimate. We can't do any evidence except for people's personal experience when they go and talk to a genuine psychic for them to actually walk away and feel that it was the genuine service, if you like. And a lot of the time, people aren't sure. They walk away and they're not really sure. They don't really know if it was true or not. Other times people will have a service and they will walk away knowing absolutely that this is the real deal. So from my perspective, what I want to do here is actually support people to identify and report who they believe to be scammers to the police so that they don't exploit these vulnerable people. A lot of the time it's mediumship services as well, where people are trying to make a connection with a lost loved one, and particularly the woman that lost the 300,000, I saw it on the TV, where her mother had been murdered many years ago. So she was particularly vulnerable. She wanted to connect with her mum that she lost when she was a child. So here we go. I'll go into the next slide and I'll give you a couple of tips. Now, I have taught, anybody that has known me for a while will be aware that I've taught a lot of people how to access their psychic gifts and how to actually be a reader with integrity and to be honest, okay? Because we are not, whether we're psychics or not, we're not perfect at all things at all times. And sometimes you might, for instance, get a referral. Somebody might say to you, look, I've met this brilliant psychic. She's absolutely amazing. And then you go along and you have a service from her and you walk away and you think, well, it wasn't that amazing to me. In fact, actually, it was pretty poor quality. This is because psychics can be genuine as well, but actually also impacted. This is part of developing self-mastery. They can be influenced by what's going on in their surroundings. So if you've got a psychic, most of the ones that I know with integrity, if they've got a lot of family drama happening or there's been deaths in the family and they're struggling to maintain their status quo, they'll actually stop delivering services until such time as they feel that their energy is better balanced, okay? But sometimes, certainly as they learn to put in place these firm boundaries and know their own limitations, sometimes they actually may accept a booking and do a reading for a person when they know that they actually shouldn't, or they feel that they shouldn't. They feel perhaps their energy is compromised, and so they will deliver a reading and it's not quite as good as perhaps they would normally do. So this is why sometimes you're going to see variations in people's opinion and reviews of a reader, but you can still identify a fraud from the genuine having a bad day, okay? Because there are red flags. And the red flags, I always say to people, not only was I teaching people how to deliver readings, I was teaching people how to receive them. And if you're going to go to somebody for a reading and expect to have a genuine, honest service provided to you, the person needs to demonstrate. Now, in a way, I guess I touched on this with, if not last week's video with the yarning, where I received a service and I actually got the reader quite cross at me because I expected her to validate and she didn't feel that she needed to. The point being, as far as I am concerned, from my position, Spirit will go out of their way to validate to the seeker. Okay, so because they want the seeker to walk away and know without a doubt that the service that they're getting is the genuine article. And when I say spirit, that might be the spirit of a deceased loved one. If we're going to guides to get communication, it can be going, just confirming and validating what is going on for the person is actually accurate. So I believe a reader that will turn around and say, I don't need to validate, that's the first red flag. Yes, you do. Okay, Spirit will want you to validate. I have no doubt about that. I'm firmly convinced of it. Okay, the other next big giveaway, and to some extent I will do this at the beginning of a reading. Okay, I get jumping cards and I'm confirming that the connection is in solidly, and I don't ask people, I'm very clear right at the beginning of the reading, do not give me too much information. Do not feed me the information, because if you do, if we have any levels of intuition or empathy or compassion and all the rest of it, it can actually alter and sway the reading. Because let's say you come in and you tell us some horrendous story before we've actually done the reading. We're still human beings and we still want to see a happy outcome for you. So it might compromise not only the reading, we might, where I'm going with this is, certainly as we learn to master ourselves, we may actually be influenced by the information that you give us and tell you something that you want to hear as opposed to a truth, if that makes sense. So the first thing is, don't give them a lot of information. Keep your own counsel. When I do my readings, I will say, don't give me the information. If I have a question, I will ask you, but please give your answers brief. Because for me at the beginning, it's about confirming that the connection is there. So I will pull a couple of cards and say, this is what I'm picking up from this. Does this resonate with you? Now, a genuine psychic is going to do the same thing, but in different ways. They're not all going to do it the same as me. So just to be clear about that, does this resonate with you? And if the person says yes, I know that I'm on track. If I turn a couple over and the person goes, no, it doesn't resonate at all, then either I'm not hearing the message properly, or I'm misinterpreting the cards, or I need to center and then start shuffling cards again and starting from the beginning just to make sure the connection is in. Okay, but if somebody is not authentic, that is the time they are going to start really abusing it. They're going to ask you these leading questions. They're going to prompt you to give them information. So now getting into it, other things that can be concerning is they can give you frightening messages. Now, a frightening message isn't always that a person is a scammer. So I'm giving a little bit of information here. If somebody is the genuine article and has any kind of responsibility, shall we say, they will know. So I will know sometimes. I'll have questions about whether or not a message I'm giving to a person is frightening because it might look a little bit like bad news. So I will then attempt to discuss with the person at the end of the reading, is there anything that bothers you? And if they say, well, yes, that frightens me or whatever, then I know I have delivered it not as spirit would have liked and not in the way that the person wanted to hear or was able to hear. So I can review the delivery and I will then go back into it. Okay, and this is what a genuine psychic will do. Another thing that a genuine psychic or metaphysical worker, doesn't matter what industry, and they're never going to tell you, in my experience, if they've got any ethics or integrity, they are never going to tell you that you need to come back for another consult, come back next week, come back the week after, come back in a month's time, okay? They will say to you, you will know when it's time to come back and visit me, okay? They will never say disempowering information to you, such as you must come back to me for X service because you need me. You know, you cannot do this on your own. This is too much for you. You will need me. They will never, ever tell you that, okay? Because it simply is not the case. The genuine article is going to be sharing skills, strategy, and information to help lift you out of whatever your problems are. And that doesn't mean to say they're going to tell you what to do. They're going to say, here's a couple of strategies. Give them a try. They might work, they may not. And also knowing their own limitations. This has worked for some people. I'm not sure, because at the end of the day, spirit will never tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. That's the other thing. So a good reader is never going to tell you what you need to do either. They will just pass on some strategy for you. The other thing is they won't actually put other people down. And that includes other teachers and other psychics. And by that, I mean, you know, we all have differences, and this includes different approaches, like I mentioned before, that you can have genuine people, but they have different methods, you know, different paths we walk as we get to the goal. And they won't. Another big red flag for me is the idea of control. Okay, so when I say we won't put other people down, I certainly... so let's talk about the teacher that I met last week. This is sort of going back to that. And I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that she does, but that doesn't mean to say that I don't think she's a good person and well-intentioned. I believe she actually is, and I do believe she's genuine. I just believe that in her particular instance, as is in mine, actually, you know, at the end of the day, we all carry wounds once we reach a certain age. And I think that, you know, because this is life gives us challenges, and it's, there's sayings there that are heal the healer or the healed healer. You know, people, we're all still growing and developing is where I'm going. So anyway, what I observed with her was that she did have some control issues, for example, and she did seem to be a bit aggressive. What I would say to that is that doesn't make her a bad person. It just means that I wouldn't put a lot of weight on any predictions that she gave me. And even the medium messages that I got, I'd still be a bit dubious of, because she hasn't learned to self-master those emotional reactions when she's delivering a service. Okay, that's really important. So where I'm going back to this is genuine psychics will not gaslight you. They're not going to give you hurtful messages and say that they're channeled, you know, and they're not going to be asking for lots and lots of money, and they will not sit there when you're paying them telling you constantly about how hard their life is and how financially deprived they might be. Now, my next words are probably going to offend a few people, so be it, such as life. I don't think a lot of people realise spell casting is a form of control. They're attempting to control other people or the environment around them through doing ritual. Now, I have an issue with spell casting. It's not something that I do. I do rituals, but they're more about affirmations and lighting a candle and solidifying intent. But it's not about trying to control other people. It's about trying to raise my personal vibration. Now, I've put the photo on here to show you this is an act. Okay, when they've got, unless you're a Romani gypsy or whatever and doing readings, wearing that kind of headgear is not part of the requirement to be a psychic, okay? As is having a crystal skull, okay? This is all about creating mystique and mystery and that kind of stuff. So it's a bit of a distraction from actually the quality. So that's why I've got that image up there. Now, I wanted to say too, there was, because I do know a genuine medium, and she will deliver some pretty harsh messages at time. And I questioned her about it actually, because I was like, why do you do it? And this is why I say there is different strokes for different folks, even if they're the genuine article. And what she said is she channels the spirits in the way that the person is used to hearing them. She doesn't soften it. Now, I have seen other mediums as well where they might swear in the course of delivering a message. And some people are offended by that. You know, spirit would never swear. But the point is that actually, if they did when they were living and the person receiving the message knows them, they're not going to be offended by that. And they're the recipient of the message. However, okay, I personally, this is why I say different strokes for different folks, I do swear, okay? I'm not going to act like a saint here. But if I was delivering a service, I don't think I would feel comfortable putting these kind of words into a message. I would probably be inclined to say something like, "Oh, there's some harsh words coming over, but they're saying it with love." You know what I mean? Because it generally is. When a spirit shows up for a reading, they are showing up with love. So anyway, I hope I've given you a couple of ideas here on how to identify these scammer red flags. Now, there will be more that I've missed for this. So, you know, if you feel that you've got one, if you feel that there's one that needs to be recognized, or where I may actually be incorrect in the information that I'm sharing, then please do put up a comment. Because I also want to say too, when we talk about they'll never give frightening messages, I recall years ago I got given one that absolutely terrified me. And I actually walked out and I gave the psychic a gobful actually on the way out and told her she was unethical, that she was whatever. I just really gave it to her because I was so unhappy with what she had said to me. I told her she didn't come from a space of light and love. Oh, all of this stuff. I mean, it was just awful. But as I said, I walked out, and about 10 years down the track, I realised, you know, because it was that kind of reading that just sits with you. And anyway, it was true. So I did find her on Facebook and I had to eat humble pie, and I just sent her, "Look, I'm really sorry. You know, it was an awful message to receive, and I have no doubt that it would have been awful for her to give as well. But I now understand through that passage of hindsight that there was actually no way that she could deliver the message that she did in soft, gentle tones. But it was actually very important had I taken it on board as a warning and caution for me, but I didn't. Anyway, such is life. So when I give these red flags, they're kind of guidelines, rules of thumb, but there's always variations to it, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of other pointers here on identifying who is the genuine article and who might be somebody that you want to continue to return to for your readings. So, where I went with this is I am aware there was a psychic code of ethics that I found many years ago, and I had a bit of a look around, and this was the one that I came up with just today, okay, which was the code of ethics for the International Psychic Association. Now, it's called International, but I think it commenced in Australia about 30 years ago. And it's a very dry one. We can see here that it actually does uphold ethics and it has a certain level of integrity. And if you go and visit their website, you will see that they also have principles of practice and that kind of stuff. But either way, I say it's very dry. Okay, it's not. It just covers the legal stuff, okay? So basically, you would want to know that if you're going to see a psychic, at least if they're not part of a psychic association, that they have some form of quality assurance, integrity, ethics, principles that they stand by. And you can see here that this actually does adhere to the wisdom of giving out information to people, which is, a good psychic might make reference to legal and medical issues, but they will not give you medical or legal advice. They will just bring it to your attention to go and do a follow-up with your qualified professional, should we say. Also, there's this big thing about not overcharging for your fees, because some psychics believe that they're natural gifts and they shouldn't be charged for it all. I say that we're not charging for the gifts, we're charging for the time. So from my perspective, I certainly do believe, charge reasonable consultation fees for your psychic work. Definitely this idea of respecting the privacy of clients and offering a confidential service. This is very important to me as well, because people open up and they share a lot of information with you in the course of delivering a service. Now, at the end of the day, I'm a social worker, so although I'm not registered with my professional body anymore, that ethos, the code of ethics, the integrity aspect is still part of what I bring to my practice when I do my readings or my psychic services. Anyway, I'll move on from this because there's a couple of other examples I wanted to show you. This one I consider to be the most clinical, the most dry, and not necessarily full of love, fluff, and joy, but it certainly covers the basics of legal requirements, shall we say. So in the course of trying to find a code of ethics or set of principles and standards for delivering metaphysical services, as I said, I did this Google because I felt that one from the International Psychic Association just didn't have enough love and warmth in it. There wasn't enough fluff in it for me, and I'm not a fluffy person, which you might be able to tell by your voice, but by my voice rather. But I wanted something that actually showed a greater care, concern and regard for your clients than what I had through this very dry IPA one. So I found this code of ethics with Lisa Williams, and I was actually really impressed by it, I've got to say. I felt that it was very caring, very loving. I don't know anything about her, and I've never spoken to anybody that's actually attended any of her courses or resources, so somebody out there might be able to make a comment about their experiences. But where I shifted on, just putting this into perspective for you, because I too can be quite clinical and quite dry, is I had a look at her courses because I'm always open to learning and developing myself. And I also had Lisa Williams mixed up with another medium that I'm aware of, whose name I cannot remember, but I thought this was her. So I had a look around her website thinking it was this other person and found some courses, and I saw that she charges $5,000 for a 4-day course. And for me, that kind of killed it. I was no longer interested in anything actually to do with it, because to me, that is in conflict with these very dry IPA ethics. You know what I mean? I don't see charging $5,000 for a 4-day workshop to actually be reasonably or fair priced, especially when, I would imagine that if you're going to have people attending these workshops, you're looking at about 10, 15, 20 people going. I mean, that's a lot of money for 4 days work. I think that's very overpriced actually. And where it's sort of, shall we say, those kind of prices fly in the face of integrity when it comes to the code of ethics. I think she's got on here something, let me have a look. Sorry, I'll just pause this while I find it. Look, at a glance, I can't see it right now, but she doesn't make any reference about keeping, from what I can see, keeping your ego in check. And she obviously doesn't have an issue with overcharging for the gifts, says that they're a gift from God, and makes the point that it shouldn't be used as a party trick, to be respectful, all of that. I guess the line, be in integrity with all that you do and only use your gift for the highest good of others. I'm not sure how that ties in. I'm fixated on this. I'm very sorry about this. If any of her people come and watch this video, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, as far as to charge $5,000 for a 4-day course means that people who are low income can't access this quality of service. And if she's a really good teacher, it would be an absolute gift and blessing for them. And, in fairness to her, I don't know her. Maybe she does offer freebies to people. Maybe she does do discounts and all the rest of it. But to have this $5,000 for 4 days, I don't see how, that it just doesn't work for me, is where I'm going. Okay, I'll leave it at that. It doesn't work for me. So, where I'm going with this is I Googled a bit more and I found a PDF, and this is the Declaration of Principles that I found online. But it actually doesn't really say the name of the author, which is why I've put the question mark up the top there. I think the author is Pharaoh Wilson, but I'm absolutely not sure. So if you know, please do feel free to let us know. Where I'm going with this is when I found this one spoke to my heart, shall we say. This is the one that resonates with me, and I feel this is the most professional, kindest, compassionate, all of those kind of things, honest, know your limitations, mature, all of that stuff. This is what I like. But I will say there is one discrepancy for me, because remember, when it comes to ethics and principles and values, they're all personal, right? So it's what feels right to us. So there is one thing in here that will make you gasp, and this is the one where she's got number 10. I do not counsel that someone is about to die or has a terminal disease, even if I feel a serious illness may be present. Okay, now I used to be like that, and for the most part I am, right? But I'm saying that there have been times when I have delivered the messages of death and dying, and I had to really process it. And basically, this is about streamlining and trusting your own guides and your guidance, that there is a time and a place. We don't just turn around, certainly I don't turn around and go, well, I'm seeing death here for you. You know what I mean? There was one time, actually, no, I'll be honest here. It was my big fear that I would see death in the cards when I started doing readings online. And the moment I started doing them, it was like the universe said, well, that's your big fear, so here you go, cop it, right? The first 3 readings that I did, they spoke about death. Well, of course, I've had to run away, curl up in a ball somewhere because it's not a live reading, and do this whole big reflection on if I'm frightened of the message, then obviously I'm not listening properly. There's, because I have got, if you like, I've worked on communication with my guides for a long time, and I thought my reaction is my problem. So I need to explore this a bit more with my guides before I go back and give a message, which I did. And in the end, I reached the decision, and I had to really trust my own intuition and guidance to deliver it, which was, it was a typed reading, I remember, to the woman, and I said, look, I feel that what I'm seeing in these cards here, I said, the death card has presented, and I said, initially, and this is quite true, it was a huge deterrent for me to actually give you a reading. I said, but as I go through and reflect on it, I said, I feel that you're aware that there is somebody that is dying around you, and you're actually asking how much longer before they pass, or how much longer have they got to live, one or the other. And I said, in that case, the answer is, because this is the way I used to work when I was practicing and developing my skills online too. In that case, based on the cards, what I'm seeing is that death is not imminent. The person obviously is going to have a shortened lifespan, but it's going to, they'll be here for at least the next couple of years or whatever, based on what I'm seeing in the cards today. Because, we can't, that's a bit risky, shall we say. But I had to really follow my inner guidance with that. Now, the beauty of that was the lady came back to me and she said, you are spot on. She said, I'm not hoping that the person will pass. She said, but I need a time frame. She said, because for her, what was going on was she was caring for her, I think it was her mother, who was ailing, who'd been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and that illness could last a couple of months, it could last a couple of years, okay? And the lady was really struggling. She'd been caring for her at that point in time, I think, for at least 12 months, while raising children, while working, and she was fatigued and exhausted. And she said, the point that I'm at is, she said, if it's only going to be 6 months, she said, I'll dig deep. And she said, and I'll keep caring for mum. She said, but if it's going to go on for another couple of years, she said, I know I can't sustain it, and my health is going to fail, and I won't be able to meet my maternal obligations with my children. She said, so I have a decision to make. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that whole disclaimer thing there, well, look, that's based on the energy of the cards. I can't say categorically that this is what's going to happen. This is just what I'm seeing with the cards today. And she said, yeah, thank you. So where I'm going with this is sometimes I will actually make mention of it, but I certainly dig very deep and reflect before I actually mention it. And the other time that comes to mind where I have actually delivered it, tried to hide it, but I couldn't hide it because it was actually a face-to-face reading. The death card came flying out the pack, and by that, I talk about jumping cards. But this card just went airborne and spun around and just smacked down onto the table, and it was face up, and it was a death. Now, if it was a game of snap, my hand was out there that quick and gone bang on top of it and pulled it back into the pack. But the client already saw it, and so then we had to explore it and go deeper into it, because obviously that can create a lot of fear in the person. And basically through a process of elimination, we were able to establish that it was not somebody she could think of immediately. And so therefore, from her perspective, if she was going to hear that somebody had passed away, that she would cope better with it. And to be quite honest, that's the truth. I got a phone call about, I think 2 days later. She said, look, I'm aware. She said, I've had the call. She said, I know who it is now. She said, I can't stop crying. She said, but at the same time, I'm really glad. She said, I'm so glad that you told me. She said, because at least forewarned was forearmed, or whatever, as far as knowing that something was going to happen. And she said, from her perspective at that time, she said she felt a bit silly doing all this crying because she hadn't seen this person for about 20 years, but they were very close historically. And so she was going through a process of grief with that. So yeah, anyway, where I'm going with this is I've now got to the stage when I deliver my readings, if that card comes out or if I pick up on it, then it's being brought up for a reason and the client is fully aware of it, and I just have to approach with caution. And I always do, actually. I never come straight out. Actually, that's the other thing. I never come straight out and say to a person, oh, I see death, yay, let's blow, have a party, blow the balloons up and blow whistles. I never ever do that. I always ask, is there somebody around you that's ailing? Because I just would hate to be the real bearer of bad news there. Honestly, I think that's every psychic's nightmare, okay? Anyway, moving on, I'm going to get into the channel update now, and I'll whiz through it because this video's got long. So, when it comes to the channel update, just being straightforward here and keeping it brief, it is rocking along. I have got a lot of content there that I'm working on, but I kind of go back and forth. I'm creating the templates and then I'm actually trying to put the content together to have a little bit of structure there and find images as well, because this is the thing, that when you're talking about crystals, you actually need to have some images there as well to measure, because you can talk about jade, for example, which is called jadeite. Jade's got multiple colors, and then not only do you have the multiple colors, you've got the multiple qualities. And from a metaphysical purpose, we don't need to have gem quality. We can actually have the third grade crystals, and they're still really good. But how do you tell the difference? This is an issue with a lot of them as well. And the more I'm sort of researching and trying to find images, it's like, oh yes, actually there's this one, calcite. It would be easy to mix up this particular crystal with that one if you're looking and buying online. This is actually one of the reasons why I really am coming back to look, if we're going to buy crystals, we probably should be going to a shop, visiting people, spending time with people, handling the crystals as well, and really getting a feel for them. I've actually bought another crystal, you see. Doing this stuff has just honestly brought my crystal gremlins to the fore, where I actually want to go and buy them. Anyway, look, I'll move on with the update. So this week you will have seen published the video on Tibetan Tektite, which of course is one that I recommend for anybody who works in frontline human service work. And by that I mean the mental health caregivers, the housing inspectors, with public housing, who else? Disability caregivers, all of these type of people. Now, the other people too, you could actually be a parental caregiver or a family caregiver to somebody with an illness as well, and you will definitely benefit, I believe, okay, so this is my opinion, from wearing Tibetan Tektite, because what happens with caregivers, especially family caregivers, we know this, you will know this, if you're a caregiver, you will know this, is quite often they will compromise their own health and their own needs for the sake of the person they care for. And I've just, I'm going to chuck this in here because I think it's apparent, or it's suitable. Look, at the end of the day, a family caregiver must care for themselves, because if that person is dependent on them, if they become unwell, then it has that domino effect. So this is where Tibetan Tektite helps you to remain well while being a caregiver for other people. And most of the people that work in human services, human industries, whether it's social work and any of these other professions I talked about, could even be psychologists actually, they care. They go into these professions because they actually genuinely care a lot of the time. And so these are the people that will benefit from Tektite. So you can look at the video and see what else might be up there. You'll hear a few stories if you watch that video about my experiences of using Tibetan Tektite. You will also have seen the video published last week on Opalite, and I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I've had a couple of unsubscribers this week, and it's not like I've got that many subscribers. I'm not going to notice a random one or two unsubscribing, just saying. So anyway, where I'm going with this is I'm questioning if people have unsubscribed because I've put Opalite in this list, because it's manufactured. So I just want to say, look, I have put it in. I know that it's not the genuine crystal. However, I have observed things happen, and I've heard of things happen when it comes to opalite like this, that looks like this. And I think I would be doing an injustice or a misservice to those people that might benefit from this particular crystal. So it's there, okay? Yes, okay, my preference is actually for natural formed rock crystals in their rough state, actually. And do you know what? I've got a new telephone, and my son's been trying to teach me how to use it for photographs. You can all have a laugh at my expense, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. So I might be able to take some photographs of my crystals as it comes up. It's too late now for the emeralds. I've actually found my emerald. I've got one of these tiny little genuine ones on this lovely little silvery bit of fuchsite that I'd forgotten I had. But anyway, the emerald video is up as well. That was last week before. Okay, moving on. So next week, of course, we're going to be looking at Kyanite. That will be published. I've recorded it. I just need to review it before I load it up. And goodness, that is just so much more involved than what I thought it was going to be, because Kyanite is actually one of my favourite crystals. But the only kyanite I've ever actually had and worked with was the blue. So that's where, you may as well say that's where all of my experience comes from, is with the blue kyanite. And when it comes to the other kyanite, it's kind of been on my wish list and hearing other people's experiences. So as always, you're encouraged to let me know your experiences of using them, because there's all sorts. There's orange, there's pink, there's green, there's black, there's teal, yay. Whatever, there's a lot of it there. Anyway, that video's going up. Don't forget that all my videos end up with timing chapters, so you can jump around in it and have a look. The video on Moonstone will be going up next week as well. I've still got to record the audio on it, but I've done the transcript and that kind of thing. I've created the actual video. So anyway, that one I think is going up on Thursday. Now, I'm going to bring this video to your attention again, simply because I'm actually not using the video, I'm using the resources that I use to create the video, okay? And this is how it works, because while we've got a body, we end up with ailments. And suffice to say, I was in a bit of pain the other day. So what I did, I thought, oh my God, let's go back and have a look at this book. So I've grabbed the book out, and I'm like, okay, this is where the pain is. And then I look at it, the causal idea, if you like, of what's created the injury. Well, it just seems to tie together. I've looked at it and I thought, not that old chestnut again, Funny story anyway. So what I did with that was I thought I'm really not happy about this. So then I went, but I thought it makes sense to me. I know exactly why I've got it now. So I'll just have to heal it. And lucky I'm doing this spreadsheet and reminding myself of all the different healing properties and, pulling out my crystals, blowing the cobwebs off them and charging them up and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, the way it works is, so I'm like, okay, well, now I know I've got this issue that's creating this pain for me. I'll go and I'll find the crystal. But I've got to say, before I looked at the spreadsheet, I went to my little bowl, but I second guessed myself as well. I've gone to my bowl and funnily enough, I've put my hand in the first crystal that I pulled out. I looked at it and I wanted to walk off with it. I was about to walk off with it and I thought, no, I'll put that down. It was lepidolite, actually, which is another one of my favourite crystals. And I've looked at it, I thought, oh, I don't think that's the right one, but I like that one and I probably should walk off with it. But no, I'll put that down. There'll be another one here. So I've then ferreted around in the bowl and found all these different crystals. Thought, yeah, maybe that one. Put that on my little selenite, getting it all ready. And then I thought, oh, you know what, maybe I should go and check that spreadsheet that I'm creating. So I did. And guess which one I should have just picked up and walked away with? It was lepidolite, was the recommended crystal. Anyway, then of course the next day, or maybe a couple of days later, I can't remember, I've come up with carnelian. Okay, so it was like I need to be wearing carnelian. Actually, I had a headache. So the type of headache that I had, cutting a long story short, I'm actually not sure because I like to be open-minded about this. I've ended up overdosing myself with carnelian, if you like. I've got a couple of bracelets, put them on, put a pendant into a leather cage thing, leather wrapped. I've got one of those things. I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, so now I'm wearing a pendant of carnelian around my neck as well. But I will say that I actually noticed that my headache disappeared within, I don't know, maybe half an hour it had gone. So, yeah, anyway, I think it's worth giving things a shot sometimes. I probably should say, actually, if people are thinking carnelian for headaches, it was neuralgia, if that's how you pronounce the word. I knew it was, I was getting a pain. Oh, gosh, I'll just tell you. I was getting a pain basically at the base of my scalp and the top of my neck. Now, that's a pressure thing, and it was like it was hitting a nerve. So I actually needed to basically get my neck vertebrae or whatever it is off that nerve. And anyway, it was recommended that I use carnelian for that particular problem, and I did. And I feel it worked. Anyway, that's that. Now, so just a reminder of the playlist, the channel playlist that we've got now before I close out for the day. Playlists with content on it, and of course, when I talk about the law of karma, I'm making some changes for next year. I'm getting ready. We're talking about universal law and spiritual law, and the year seems to be shifting away very quickly. And I've just decided that I want to do a complete overhaul of different things, just part of a fresh new start for me as well as for you, because I think when it's the same playlists, I guess that relate to the content that we've got. So you'll be able to see those is actually coming up in the new year. Chakras, stuff to do with self-help, angels, of course. Oh, look at that! I never realised I've got that in twice. But angels are always helpful. And then we've got some mainstream health and wellbeing stuff as well. You're going to have the December monthly forecast come out. Probably in the next week. I have to check. Just a reminder, but you can. We've got all it'll be coming up if you want to see it. Just click the get notified. Of course, when I talk about. So, my friends, that is it for another week. Thank you for being part of my journey. I really shouldn't be recording. Thank you to the returning. Thank you to the newbies. But for today, I'm going to say because I don't want to pressure people. My journey. Subscribe if you want to. Wonderful, and of course, there's still week ahead. And wonderful, if you like the content, please do put the blessings in the world. Please do. And I shall feel free to make a comment with me. Take care for now. Bye bye. Have a chat with me. Let me know what you would like to see on the channel. If you want me to try and get people with expertise, it's a bit late here. One of the things that I'm trying or currently thinking about is whether or not I should try and get thank you very much again for being part of my journey. I wish you a wonderful supplier of crystals ahead and wonderful glorious to come and talk on the channel. Maybe I can do a podcast like that. I shall catch you. Or if you're a retailer yourself, maybe we could talk about that as well and discuss some of the attributes of different crystals. late here,
or just
and I
the
really
issues
shouldn't be
with
recording
buying and
videos in the
locating
evening,
some
I
of the
don't think.
preferred
But
crystals
for
as
today,
well.
I'm going to say thank
But
you very much
yeah,
again
look,
for
feel
being
free
part
to
of
have
my
a chat.
journey.
I'm open to
I
a
wish you
conversation,
a
and I
wonderful,
really look
blessed
forward to
week
having people
ahead,
participate
and
with me.
wonderful, glorious
Anyway, for
day, and
now, I'm
all
going
the
to say love
blessings
you,
in the
leave you,
world.
take care, have
And
a
I shall
blessed week.
catch you on the
Catch you on the
next
next one.
video.
Bye-bye
Take
for
care for
now.
now.
Bye.